Yo, what is up, guys? This is Mr. T coming at you live from NYC. Welcome back to Convos, our podcast over here at TimTalks. And hey, welcome back to another episode. Hey guys, again, always gonna say this every episode. You guys are leaving your honest comments and honest feedback over here, and that is awesome, right? Again, not all comments are gonna be as good. And I'm gonna feel that just because of the idea that, like I said, I'm still improving as a person, still improving as a podcaster. And so again, your feedback is really appreciated. And again, guys, thank you so much for that, right? Hey, I hope you cool cats out there are doing awesome. I worked out the mic. I tried moving it closer, and I thought that it picked up the recording a little bit better and a little bit of the emotion. I kind of noticed that my voice is still monotone. And it is what it is. It is how I'm working with the software. I'm gonna try and see what I can do to improve it, and hopefully it's not catching some of the sounds, because actually my studio is actually by the window, and I know that's probably like one of the top 10 sins of being a podcaster, but it is what it is. It's New York, right? So there's always going to be traffic, there's always going to be people out there yelling, and I'm not saying that about New Yorkers. I'm just saying there's just so much action going on out there, and to just hear all of that, I hope it doesn't get picked up on the mic, right? So again, I do apologize if you do hear some sounds like that. But anyway, so back over to the topic. So again, I'm gonna say this every what do you call it, every beginning of the podcast. So the topic is now centered on racism. Okay, so this one, first off, my thoughts on racism, right? It sucks. And what feels bad is that what I feel for is that I see racism, but the thing is, it's kind of different with the new gen, all right? It's very different with the new gen, and you're gonna see why, all right? So again, please forgive me because I know this topic can be very sensitive in nature. Again, I'm not gonna condone any specific race or whatever, right? Because everyone makes mistakes, right? There's only one race. It's called the human race. Let's be honest. I'm not sure which person had said that. I just saw it on the TV at one point. So it was a woman, and then she said there's only one race, the human race. And from there, things just went ahead for me, and that's the mindset I try to keep every single time, right? Regardless of whatever race, or ethnicity or gender or whatever that I encounter out there, and I just want to be able to maintain that. All right. So here's the deal. So here's a comment that this person left, and then I'm gonna give you my own personal thoughts on racism, and then from there, my own bit of advice, right? So I want to throw you a challenge, Mr. T. Say you see someone shoving another student at school, and all of a sudden that student who was shoved yelled profanity and pretty damn racial slurs. Okay, so who's at fault there? The one who pushed, or the guy who's being a racist, right? So also, how the frick do we deal with it, right? So again, I'm only saying, I know part of it, the profanity sounds awful, but just because of the YouTube censors, I'm still kind of afraid to go against them, because I'm already seeing a lot of people out there, right? But so let's go ahead and take a look at that, right? So my personal thoughts on racism, right? Again, you heard it earlier, it sucks. Blacks versus whites, other races versus Asians, Hispanics, Latinos, whatever, right? And it's ridiculous at this point because, I'm looking at, for example, I'm here in NYC, right? This is the place where diversity is at its highest, right? I'm not gonna say finest because there's still racist people out there, but let's go. I'm gonna take a closer look, for example, at the schools, right? So I walk to a high school, right? And I do that every so often. Guys, forgive me if you hear a bush cutter out there. I do not know why they're taking the time to do that. Anyway, so let me go ahead towards, for example, going over to a high school in NYC, right? And then looking there, I see literally black people interacting with white people. I literally see Asians interacting with Hispanics. I've seen every kind of group not centered on a color or a type of race. I have seen every time that kind of diversity that you should expect in a new gen, right? The new gen is supposed to look like that, right? And when you go over there, at the schools, I don't really hear so much of racist remarks, right? And that's actually how it should be. And I'm not saying that every school is going to be perfect, right? What I'm saying there is that when I look over at a school, racism wasn't so much of an issue, right? But then when it becomes an issue is when I see older people involved. Let's be honest, when you've seen an older person, right? Those curmudgeons, those a-holes out there, right? Who feel entitled and they feel that they're wise to promote racism, right? Let's be honest, it happens, right? Especially when you get to the elderly. And I'm not dissing the elderly. I'm just saying there how um when it comes down to a child, right? When it comes down to you guys out there, anyone who's still young, hip, fresh, whatever, right? When you guys grow up, right? Do you got any racist ideas in mind? Probably not, right? So think about that. So racism is not innate, right? You know, the color that you're born with, the skin tone that you have, the culture that you're part of, right? You know, you learn those things. Some things are you're born with, but other things you learn, right? Racism is not something that someone is born with, right? It's a race, but it's taught. I want you to let that sink in for a bit. When you hear racism, right? It's not born with, right? It's literally taught. Someone is promoting the idea to be racist against this certain race, this certain ethnicity, this certain gender, sexual orientation, right? And that's where the ridiculousness comes into play. Think about it, right? I'm not gonna say that everyone is, an angel, right? And every one of us can feel kind of guilty being at racist at some point in our lives. That one I won't judge. But I want you to think about it, right? At the time when you felt racist, right? What do you think, or rather, where'd you get the idea from, right? Did you really believe it? Because you couldn't have believed it if you weren't taught it, right? If you didn't happen to see it for yourself, right? And I get it why some people, for example, feel racist because of like a trauma or whatever, right? And that much is real, right? Sometimes racism is bred by, traumatic things. And I get that, right? But sometimes there's not even pain going on, right? There's not even a problem going on, and then there's just racism going on. You know what I mean, right? Take a look, for example, I'm going to use the word Karen in the sense of, the Karen that you see on social media, right? Those older, curmudgeon adults, mostly female. For a guy, it's usually a Kyle, right? They be overly religious, overly racist, right? And then from there, right, you can kind of see what happens and who's the one promoting the racism, right? And like I said, very, very rarely do I see a Karen or a Kyle who is of the new gen, like 20 or 30. It's very hard for me to see that. Yes, the new gen can be entitled, right? And sometimes we feel that in a certain way. And, I've been guilty of that. And I know other people who aren't afraid to say that. But, when you really look at it, there's a difference between entitlement and being racist, just being downright mean and cruel, right? So, again, over to this person's comment, right? So, you said here that, say I saw someone shoving another student. Well, first off, I'm not going to condone the bullying, right? When there's bullying happening, no, I'm a teacher, right? I don't condone that shiz. And I'll do everything that I can to hear both sides, right? Because, for all we know, right, when it comes down to bullying, gonna stray off a little bit. When it comes down to bullying, right, you're gonna find that there are no winners. There's only victims, right? The one who's in trouble and the one who was hurt, right? That's usually the case. But anyway, away from bullies, right? Back to this case where the student was shoved, right? So obviously the bullying, I don't condone that, right? That's a whole different matter, and that's a whole another episode for another day, right? But then The other student says racial slurs. Again, that's still bullying, right? And again, in this case, the person asks here who's at fault. Well, in this case, if you're really thinking about it, right, there ain't faults, right? There's only mistakes that's really happening, right? Because no one, a race shouldn't be a fault. That's really something deep. A race shouldn't be one's fault. You're born with it. You're a part of it, right? It's gonna be the way that you look, the color of your skin, the color of your hair, the color of your eyes, even, and that's fine, right? Only one race. There's only one race, the human race, right? It's just that we happen to look so different from each other that to think that, no, are we still humans, right? And like I said, children don't have that thought yet, right? Look at us as the new gen. We're used to seeing racism and to think we don't want to be that, right? But older people, heck, they were born into that lifestyle, right? They were born to think of it in that way, right? If you don't believe me, ask any older person, right? Or don't even ask, just go out there and see what's happening, right? Look closely at another person's actions, especially an older person, and see how their actions, their thoughts, their feelings, you can even tell by the way they stare at another person, or even the way that they move away from someone, right? You know what I mean, right? Some people move away. I'm going to use a very popular example is when the white person is moving away from the black person. I ain't afraid to say that because I've seen it, right? And many of us have seen it too, right? And again, it looks ridiculous, right? Because I've seen literally the white guy fist bump a black guy because they're best friends. And even I myself, right? I'm an immigrant, but I also have a lot of friends who are white of European descent, and what? I don't see a problem with them. And that's the mindset. But I think in this case, right, the fault there doesn't lie with the two. In this, whoever left this comment here. So again, yes, someone got hurt, someone did the hurting, right? But who was the one who fed the idea, right? So who's the one who put the ideas in mind? Who's the person who made it so that, hey, you're gonna diss those Asians because they brought COVID? Or who's the one that said, oh, don't don't like those guys, they took our jobs, or something like that, right? So this little incident opens up a whole nother story, right? This little incident that happened with the bully and the one who's yelling racist slurs. Again, they're just trying to air out grievances, right? Air out stress. But if you really look at it, there's other people at play, right? Teachers, parents, other adults, right? Older people who didn't have the open-mindedness to always see that. And again, this doesn't always apply to every older person, right? Sometimes it's just those very few people. Well, I don't, not very few, there's a lot, but it's just those kind of people who feel that they can attribute their problems to a race. You see how much BS that sounds like, right? So really think about that. Think about racism and think about what it looks like, not only from one incident of racism, but what's going on around, right? Because what's happening there is just part of a bigger picture, right? Having that still happening in the world, again, it's still disheartening to hear it, right? But let's be honest, right? We're still young. And honestly, what I still love, that's why I said this podcast, I though I reach out to every gen, I look also more toward the new gen, right? Because the world is gonna be ours. No one's gonna take it from us, right? And we're gonna inherit it, we're gonna be a part of it, and we're gonna be a better gen, right? We just want to be more knowledgeable. Some people say we're stuck on our phones, right? Well, hey, we're more informed, right? And I just saw a rally over it, I think in um I forgot what state, but I just saw a rally, and then from there I saw every single race promoting against one thing. I think it was gun violence. But I saw students, literally students, who are doing better jobs at being adults than the adults are, right? And that warms my heart to know that's still a thing, and that other people out there know that this world has to come down to what we want, right? What is it that we want as a people, right? What is it that we want as a nation, or heck, even as a community of the globe, right? So what do we want to promote, and all those kind of things, right? And so, again, a small incident, but there's bigger forces at play. Heck, even racism is put into policy. I've seen the Jim Crow laws; they suck, right? Um, and again, if here's another issue there. If some people have said that the new gen is being racist, but again, where did that come from, right? And it's not too late for us because we're still young. We can still look to other things, right, and accept other things, right? Like literally, when I came over to NYC, I'm gonna be honest, I really have not seen so many white people, black people, Hispanic people in my life. I've never. I'm so used to Asian households, Pacific Islander households, that when I came over here, I never got to see that until I first got off the airport. I left the airport and then I saw a whole nother community, which is awesome. I had no regret because I got to meet other races, other cultures, just to hear the vibe. And, when I listen to them, they sound just like me. I know I'm not the most educated person, but I do have a mind and a heart, right? And, I have my own inner demons, I have my own challenges to deal with, but I do know when another gen is making sense, when another person is making sense. And regardless if they're a different race from me, doesn't matter, right? So back to the comment, how the frick do we deal with it? That's the thing about racism, right? I'm gonna think about this, coordinate my thoughts, but hey, also I wanted to go ahead and play this soundtrack I found on YouTube. It sounds legit. And also I wanted to insert the radio in the middle. Just because of the idea, let all that sink in, right? If you're being racist, it's not your fault. It ain't your fault, right? So when you're being racist, if you're dissing another race or a gender or another form of ethnicity, right? Just know that that wasn't your fault, right? And it's not too late to change that. So keep that in mind as I'm gonna play this, just to chill out for a bit and just give you my last bit of advice before we sign off. All right? All right, so welcome back, guys. I hope you enjoyed the soundtrack. Again, I'm gonna give my credit where it's due to the people who made these. Just because, like I said, a lot of people, I love music. I remember I did a podcast on music with Jordan, and it was awesome just to hear his thoughts and opinions on it, and the fact that he's a songwriter, that was awesome, right? But back to what we're thinking about racism, right? So, you remember how I said there that it ain't your fault, right? Let's do a quick reset. It ain't your fault that you're racist, right? If you were racist at any point in your life, and I'm gonna guarantee you that it has happened one point in our lives, and at any given point in our lives, it can happen again, right? We can always think of it in that way, right? But like I said, where'd it come from? Who's really at fault there, right? I want you to think about that very carefully, right? Because where did the hate come from? Who was the one who promoted that, right? And who's the first one that taught you? Right? Your parents, right? And who else taught you? Your teachers. And who else taught you? Every other adult out there who thinks that they can control you, make you who they are, right? So you're the problem there. That much we know. And we know for certain that the only reason why we feel it is because that's what we thought we were taught, right? And again, this is not to say go diss your parents, diss your teachers, diss your principal for whatever it is that you felt, right? For whatever difficulties that you encountered, right? So all those things. So again, thinking about racism, right? Thinking about those difficulties that you encounter, right? So when it comes down to it, it's not something you were born with. You were born with a race, you were born with your own skin tone, any tone for that matter, right? It's in your blood. But what isn't in your blood is the hate, right? So the hate, it came from someone else, right? The only thing that we should do is to not believe that, right? And the ideas that, other races are different, but only on the surface, right? Because I can talk to my friends, like I literally have black friends, Asian friends, Hispanic friends, white friends, and we all think the same thing, right? We all think the same thing. Yeah, we got different attitudes. We can't change so much about where we came from. We can change where we go from there, right? And that is the most important thing. What's really down to earth is that there is only the human race, right? There's only the human race out there in the world, right? And yes, we can throw some jokes, right? Yes, we can throw off some stereotypes. We can also throw down some little quirks about ourselves, right? But, why do we take that so harshly, right? If we act a certain way, a culture is what changes us, influences us, right? But the idea to hate on those other cultures, right? Cut it out, right? That ain't our gen. Our gen is supposed to be a new gen, right? We're supposed to be better. And I'm not sounding like a parent here, but we are gonna be better, right? Like literally, I was talking to like Miss Audacity, right? And she learned so much from, for example, like Instagram, TikTok, whatever, right? Even on YouTube. And from there, I was informed of things that were new to me, right? And there isn't that hint, right? And she also has friends of different races, right? And same thing with me. Because I really believe that there is, if we live in a world where not just accept each other, but care for each other, love for each other, and also the idea that we are part of the human race, right? All those things that we have about other races, yeah, they're gone, right? Yes, attitudes will always interfere, right? Yes, people can have an attitude. But the one thing we shouldn't attribute to is the idea that their attitude is a result of their race. That's the problem I feel many people have. When they hear an attitude and when they hear a certain thing that a certain race does, oh, they put it on the whole culture. There's a problem there, right? So again, that's the idea that many people are fueled by, but that's where we can cut it off, right? What I love about the new gen is that we can quickly swipe away whatever it is that we don't like, right? Why can't we do the same, for example, when it comes down to other people's race, right? Like literally, we came out of the pandemic all because we worked together on that, right? And like I said, old gen is going away, right? The ideas die with the ones that came before us, right? Any bad idea that comes into mind, right? It goes away. Because without that person, right, who's promoting it, right? Who do we become? Who do we become, right? So from there, that's where we start off, right? As a new gen, we're gonna work towards building a better future, a safer future, a more accepting future. And again, with attitude, keep in mind that if there's an attitude, that's on the person, not on the culture, not on the race, right? The love is gotta be there somewhere, right? And again, just keep an open mind about what you have on top of, for example, what other people are showing off, right? Because if someone's promoting racism, bullshit, right? It ain't true. And the idea that other people feel superior to other people, and just having those ideas stuck in the mind, right? Again, our gen is now well informed about what's going on. We know what's right and we know what's wrong. It's just a matter, most of all, what do we use with it and how do we learn to love? I think love is like the key. Love is absolutely important, and I believe that's the tool that can enable other people to accept each other, right? Like I said, love you guys as my family, as an audience, as just being people, right? And there's no issue with that at all, right? Like I said, I still have a lot to learn. I still have my own parents, and they say when your parents are still here, you're still always going to be the child, right? And there's still much I have to learn from there. But like I said, if we're going to learn, we're going to learn together, right? It's the whole point there. So again, racism, bad, loving, good. Don't attribute attitude to race. Attitudes are a result of a person. They are not of a race. And also, if we see racism going on, especially with the new gen, something is up, right? And I'm very sure it came from something else, right? Like I said, just say I love you, and really there's a throwback, right? There's always gonna be something off with the one who's trying to do it. But anyway, that's gonna be it for this episode of Convos. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Again, with racism, I know it's still out there in the world. I know it's still a big issue. But if I can see the schools are doing fine without, I feel like schools can be fine without the adults and just leave the kids there to their own devices. We're gonna be fine, right? Because we're all in this together, right? So again, with racism, it's bad. Love, good, and above all, be the better person. Literally, that's as best as I can suggest to you guys. If you want to ask more questions, again, please comment down in I keep saying the description, so always just comment down in YouTube, comment down on YouTube, or leave a DM, PM me if anything, how you feel if you encounter something racist. Again, let me get it down and I'll see what I can do to help you guys. If you see anything you feel isn't right, again, let me know so I can do my best to advise you. I hope for the best. I hope you guys stay safe out there. And please know that there are good people out there. There's always going to be them. All right? So please like, share, sub, and much love. This is Mr. T signing off. Please have an awesome day, everyone, and stay safe. All right? Peace.